Welcome to Human Drift, a series of long-form journeys through the body, the mind, and the threshold between them. Each episode is a descent into biology, into memory, into whatever waits beneath the noise of the day. This is not instruction, it's an exploration. A map drawn from physiology, philosophy, and imagination, where science meets story and thought becomes landscape. You can listen lying down or walking, awake or half asleep. There's no right way to travel, only direction inward. So settle, let the system slow, let the signal quiet, and drift with me. The interface slows, it begins in that moment when the algorithm runs out of things to feed you. The screen hangs, the signal softens, and the room remembers it has air. Under the electric hum, there's a quieter pulse. Yours. You've been translating yourself into data all day. Keystrokes, dopamine ticks, heart rate graphs, a constellation of notifications pretending to be connection. Now the translation lags. The biological clock starts pushing back against the digital one. The nervous system doesn't switch off, it negotiates. Inside your skull, billions of neurons are still whispering in binary, spikes and silences, while your phone cools beside you like a sleeping animal. The body listens for a cue that the hunt is over. It hasn't arrived yet. Every muscle fiber holds a timestamp. Glutamate still echoes in the synapses of the trapezius. Cortisol skims through the bloodstream. A faint metallic taste of urgency. That taste is the flavor of unfinished business. But tonight, unfinished is allowed. You are not a process to be optimized. You are a system seeking coherence after a day of compression. In the vessels under your skin, tubes thinner than a strand of hair, erythrocytes drift like cargo pods. Each one carries a story of oxygen, a slow barter between breath and cell. The bloodstream is an old network, older than speech, older than fire. Its protocol is simple: deliver, return, repair. When the signal of adrenaline fades, the blood switches to maintenance mode. Capillaries dilate by fractions of millimeters, invisible as mercy. The skin begins to register temperature again. You feel the outline of your own body reforming, not as an avatar, but as an atmosphere. That's the parasympathetic system coming online, the half of you that believes the world might be safe. The vagus nerve extends its quiet influence, releasing acetylcholine like a soft password into the heart. Each molecule says, stand down, not surrender, just recalibration. Machines cool by venting heat, mammals cool by releasing story. Notice how thought slows when you stop narrating failure. You can give it one, a breath measured in tens instead of milliseconds. That ratio is a line of code for the medulla. Exhale longer, and the body executes rest subroutine. You are not meditating, you are debugging. Every exhale deletes a redundant alert. Somewhere in the pons, electrical traffic begins to thin. The eyes twitch once, twice, an ancient reflex tracing predators that no longer exist. This is the moment the body reclaims authorship. The machines have taught you precision. Now the nervous system will teach you presence. In the cortex, sodium channels close in sequence, a slow fade of pixels across the mind's display. Each one frees a tiny piece of silence. Neurons that spent the day calculating probability now idle in spontaneous harmony. Their baseline firing is not emptiness, it's readiness. Readiness to repair, to integrate, to forget what deserves forgetting. You've read about neuroplasticity as if it were progress, a ladder upward. But tonight it is drift, a controlled blur that lets you unlearn the day. Synapses weaken where attention no longer flows. That is not decay, it's pruning. Pruning makes space for rest, the same way winter clears a branch for spring. Think of the body as an ecosystem under maintenance. Microglia, the brain's janitors, crawl through cortical corridors like small nocturnal animals consuming metabolic debris. They prefer darkness. When light disappears, their shift begins. This is why late-night scrolls cost more than time. The microglia wait for the cue that never comes. You might imagine them now, tiny custodians brushing beta amyloid from your neural gutters, recycling broken receptors into amino dust. They hum in GABA's key, the brain's natural hush. GABA is not sedation, it's consensus. Millions of neurons agreeing to lower the volume at once. In that quiet, memory consolidates. Trauma files itself under context instead of crisis, and the body's sense of self defragments into coherence. The air you breathe right now is data too. Every molecule of oxygen was part of a star once. Somewhere in the Andromeda stream, a dying sun coughed out the same element feeding your mitochondria. Your cells interpret that starlight as voltage. ATP hums, voltage flows, consciousness flickers. Cosmic physics reduced to domestic metabolism. You don't have to understand it, you are it. Now, beneath the collarbone, the heart executes its own algorithm. Electrical impulses begin in the sinoatrial node, travel through Purkinje fibers like a timed broadcast. Each contraction is a network handshake between muscle and electricity. The signal speed? About 0.6 meters s. 1. That's slower than a text message, but infinitely more trustworthy. You are hearing this because your auditory cortex is still awake enough to assign meaning to pressure waves. Soon it will stop parsing words and start measuring rhythm. When that happens, keep listening. The sentences will turn to patterns, and the patterns to waves. This is not failure of focus, it's transfer of control. Language dissolves so biology can speak directly. The parasympathetic system is fluent in this other language. Its verbs are stretch, sigh, release. Its nouns are pulse and temperature. If you listen long enough, you can hear it say the same sentence over and over. You are safe enough to power down. GABA is first to arrive. It drifts across synaptic gaps like a diplomat carrying white flags. In the waking world, neurons shout to be heard. Voltage bursts, spikes, and sprints. Now they whisper. GABA binds to its receptors, opening channels that let chloride ions in, softening electrical storms into gentle weather. You feel it as exhale, the subtle fall of tension in the jaw, the weight of shoulders rediscovered. This is not sedation, it's consensus. Millions of cells agreeing at last to lower the volume. Behind GABA comes serotonin, the slow architect. It balances the emotional architecture built during the day. The anger half expressed, the laughter that never quite finished, the unclosed loops of worry. Serotonin doesn't erase them, it files them. It passes messages down the brainstem into the gut, where enterochromaffin cells wait like archivists. 95% of your serotonin lives there, among bacteria that don't know your name but influence your moods. While you sleep, they adjust the record. They decide which memories to keep vivid, which to fade, which to bury under the compost heap of forgetting. The mind dreams, the gut edits. Acetylcholine takes over next, opening the gates to REM. It is the molecule of motion and imagination, an old conductor in a silent symphony. When it rises, muscles lock, paradoxically paralyzed to keep you from acting out your dreams. The body becomes a sealed vessel, but the mind flares with motion, eyes darting beneath lids, limbs twitching in simulation. Acetylcholine turns thought into theater. It doesn't know what's real, it doesn't care. Its task is rehearsal, not performance, and within that private cinema, memory fragments are pulled apart and rewoven into meaning. Dreams are data being reorganized by chemistry. Dopamine, the restless innovator, does not rest easily. Even in sleep it flickers, maintaining the circuits of motivation, prediction, and learning. But its rhythm changes. By daylight it operates in spikes, sudden bursts chasing novelty, each one tagged with anticipation. By night it drifts into waves. It no longer seeks, it consolidates. Patterns of reward are redrawn. The mind rewrites its motivational code, trimming pathways that no longer lead anywhere, strengthening those that bring coherence. This is how desire becomes focus. Without it, you would wake every morning in chaos, every day starting at zero. The chemistry of quiet is not uniform. It is a living sequence of cascades, feedback loops, and counterweights. When you lie still, the pituitary and pineal glands begin their secret correspondence. Melatonin doesn't make you sleep, it tells the body it's allowed to. Once the signal spreads, heart rate drops by 5, maybe 10 beats per minute. Core temperature lowers by a fraction of a degree. You cross a border without moving. Inside this biological dusk, every organ recalibrates to slower time. Glycogen stores become glucose, detoxification protocols run. Caffeine residue, alcohol fragments, metabolic waste, each is filtered, bound, and neutralized. While you dream of water, the liver conducts its own flood, flushing excess hormones and balancing blood chemistry like a backstage engineer. It never sleeps, it only changes shift. Farther down, the intestines resume their slow wave motion, peristalsis rediscovering its rhythm. You've mistaken stillness for inactivity, but nothing in the body is still. Even in deep sleep, the gut contracts in patient waves, a peristaltic lullaby guiding nutrients through darkness. Microbial citizens converse in quorum signals, chemical languages more ancient than DNA. They modulate immunity, tweak serotonin, whisper to the vagus nerve. If consciousness is theater, they are the audience murmuring in approval when the story quiets. Up in the heart, ion channels open and close with quiet precision. The sinoatrial node fires rhythmically, a pulse that doesn't need supervision. With each beat, nitric oxide spreads through vascular walls, dilating them in gentle increments. It's a molecule of kindness, the physical equivalent of trust. Widening vessels means lower pressure, better flow, easier oxygenation. You can almost hear it if you listen closely enough, the hush of circulation equalizing. This is not metaphor, it's hydraulics tuned to compassion. While the organs hum, the brain's lymphatic system begins its sweep. Cerebrospinal fluid pulses through channels around blood vessels, washing metabolic residue out of the neural landscape. This flow intensifies during sleep, expanding by nearly 60%. Beta amyloid, the protein fragment linked with cognitive decline, is among the first to go. The brain cleans itself by dreaming. You could call this maintenance, you could call it grace. Both would be true. At the cellular level, mitochondria shift into a quieter mode of respiration. Less ATP is demanded, less oxidative stress is produced. Reactive oxygen species fall to background noise. DNA repair enzymes move along chromatin like librarians restoring burned books. They splice out damage caused by ultraviolet light, stress hormones, or sheer time. You wake with slightly different genes than you fell asleep with, repaired, rebalanced, recompiled. Every molecule has a circadian loyalty. Cortisol, the morning herald, remains low for now, but waits just beyond the horizon of dawn. Its counterpart, growth hormone, takes the stage instead. Released in pulses through the first half of the night, it rebuilds muscle tissue, repairs collagen, strengthens bone. The same molecule that shaped you as a child still moves silently through your bloodstream, a remnant of growth repurposed for resilience. You think you've stopped growing, but the chemistry disagrees. Somewhere in the hypothalamus, a feedback loop tightens. Temperature regulation, appetite suppression, hormonal coordination, all recalibrated. The circadian pacemaker, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, ticks on, counting hours by light remembered rather than seen. Photons from earlier in the day are still echoing in the retinal cells, carried as chemical afterimages to tell the brain how long the night should last. The body lives in a simulation of starlight. If you could watch it from the inside, it would not look peaceful. The neurochemistry of rest is a storm moving at microscopic scale, ions rushing, receptors opening and closing, enzymes flicking on and off like tiny lanterns. But the sum of all this turbulence is stillness, complexity resolving into quiet through sheer coordination. A billion microscopic negotiations result in one macroscopic truth. You are safe enough to drift. At this stage, consciousness hovers near the edge of deep sleep. The line between awareness and oblivion flickers. A stray thought rises, an unfinished email, a sound from the street, but the chemistry catches it before it takes hold. Cortisol remains suppressed, noradrenaline stays low, and the amygdala is lulled into silence by serotonin's even tone. Emotion can't gain traction without chemistry's permission. The mind might reach for fear, but the molecules don't deliver the signal. Peace is not a feeling, it's a biochemical veto. Dreaming begins to curl up from that silence, faint and tentative. Acetylcholine spikes again, flickering images across the visual cortex. This is the brain's attempt to metabolize experience through metaphor. The day's unprocessed fragments, a conversation, a scent, a regret, are rendered into symbols. The hippocampus replays them, the amygdala edits for emphasis. You become both archivist and witness. The chemistry provides the palette, your mind paints without supervision. Outside the skull, the skin responds too. Vasodilation cools the surface by fractions of degrees. Heat radiates through the sheets. Moisture condenses at the edge of the pillow. Each molecule of sweat carries salt, sodium, potassium, chloride, the same ions that run your neurons. Even in rest, you're exchanging messages with the atmosphere. The air tastes faintly of salt because you are writing yourself back into it. At 3 a.m., blood sugar levels reach their minimum. Glucagon rises to compensate. Adrenal glands release trace epinephrine bursts to prevent hypoglycemia, microscopic wake-up calls ensuring survival. These fluctuations are imperceptible, yet they script the architecture of morning. If they falter, you wake disoriented, heart pounding. If they balance, you wake whole. Health is simply chemistry keeping its rhythm while you're gone. The chemistry of quiet isn't passive, it's participatory. Your body doesn't wait for peace, it manufactures it. Each molecule contributes to a distributed system of reassurance. If one link falters, too much blue light, too little food, a pulse of late anxiety, the cascade stumbles. But the system is resilient. Given darkness, warmth, and the permission to rest, it repairs itself faster than it breaks. Evolution built redundancy into calm. This is the hidden architecture of recovery. The same neurotransmitters that fuel focus by day are recycled into serenity by night. The same hormones that prime muscles for fight are retrained for healing. You are not two creatures, productive and resting, but one circuit with alternating current. Wake and sleep are mirror algorithms designed for continuity. Every quiet night is a software patch for the human condition. In the hours before dawn, melatonin peaks and begins to wane. Growth hormone delivers its final surge. Prolactin, the hormone of nurture, rises quietly, linked to immune modulation and empathy restoration. There is data showing that kindness increases after adequate sleep, not as moral virtue, but as chemistry optimized. Restored oxytocin sensitivity rebuilds social attunement. The mammal inside you remembers tribe. The night, for all its solitude, is an act of reconnection. Beneath it all, quantum-level coincidences still dictate form. Every breath shifts probabilities. Electrons in heme molecules exchanging with oxygen atoms birthed from stellar fusion billions of years ago. The chemistry of quiet isn't local, it's cosmological. The same physical constants that govern galaxies also govern the voltage of your neurons. Sleep is how the cosmos recalibrates inside flesh. In the final arc of the night, as REM gives way to deeper delta waves, something remarkable happens: synchrony. Billions of neurons begin to fire and rest in slow unison, 1 to 4 hertz. The brain hums like a single organism, blood flow evens. The heart entrains to that rhythm. Every system, from gut bacteria to endocrine glands, falls into phase alignment. This is coherence, biology's quiet chorus. You won't remember it, but you were there, a creature made of chemistry and intention, dissolving into equilibrium. No algorithm could simulate the simplicity of that moment, but in truth, it is the foundation of everything awake. Without the chemistry of quiet, nothing human holds. By morning, the molecules will withdraw, handing consciousness back its noisy dominion. You will wake thinking the night was empty, but it was full of work, repair, mercy, and microscopic forgiveness. Every cell has written a line of code in your survival. You were rebuilt while you dreamed. You were calibrated without knowing it. They will be back tonight, ready to run the maintenance script again, faithful as breath, patient as time. Not every nervous system sleeps the same way. Even in darkness, difference hums. For some, rest arrives like a tide, slow, inevitable, washing over resistance. For others, a negotiation that never fully resolves. The mind keeps circling the runway, engines humming long after clearance. The neurodivergent brain, ADHD, autism, trauma-shaped, anxious, dysregulated, moves through the night like an ecosystem in flux. The chemistry is familiar, but the timing is off. The ratios bend. GABA whispers, but dopamine keeps talking. Cortisol forgets its cue. Melatonin is late to the stage. The result is not insomnia, not exactly. It's a state of half-sleep, where consciousness hovers and won't dissolve. A liminal mind built for vigilance, trying to learn trust. For the ADHD body, the transition is an argument between speed and surrender. The day's rhythm doesn't end with the clock, it echoes in the synapses. Neurotransmitters keep chasing novelty in the dark. The same circuitry that drives curiosity by day, reward prediction, hyperfocus, attentional switching, now refuses to power down. The nervous system mistakes silence for deprivation. It goes looking for stimulus, any spark, any thought. This is why the mind invents stories at midnight, entire worlds spun out to avoid the abyss of nothing happening. It isn't failure, it's survival. The brain evolved to keep moving. Autistic sleep runs on another law entirely. It's not about motion, it's about fidelity. Where ADHD seeks novelty, autism seeks precision. Sensory systems don't trust the dark, they test it. The hum of the refrigerator, the neighbor's footsteps, the faint shift of air pressure when the heating stops, every frequency is data, and data demands passing. Sleep becomes a slow decoding of reality, an attempt to confirm that the world has not changed while the eyes were closed. Predictive coding is the key phrase here. The brain continually forecasts incoming signals and corrects the error between expectation and perception. In neurotypical sleep, that prediction error fades into background noise. In autistic sleep, it stays alive. The body listens too closely to silence. This fidelity can be both gift and curse. The same heightened coherence that allows deep pattern recognition, artistic focus, mathematical intuition, auditory acuity can also trap the system in vigilance. The brain becomes a sentry, not a dreamer. REM comes late, sometimes distorted, crowded with literal imagery and memory playback. Dreams can feel like data visualization, clear, sharp, saturated with information, but low on symbolic distortion. Jung would have called this the language of the sensorium rather than the unconscious. Dreams that are not myths but mirrors. And then there's trauma. The architecture built under duress, rewired for survival. For the traumatized nervous system, safety is conditional. The parasympathetic system hesitates to engage. Vagal tone remains shallow, ready to switch back to alert in an instant. Sleep in such bodies is not restoration but patrol. Every micro noise registers as a threat rehearsal. Even dreams serve vigilance, nightmares as exposure therapy, testing what the body can withstand. You might think the mind is punishing itself. It isn't. It's trying to finish the story it never got to finish, the one that froze mid-scream. Dream researchers talk about emotional memory integration, the process by which REM sleep allows traumatic images to be re-encoded without the same hormonal load. In simple terms, the nightmare is the nervous system replaying the file until the fear decouples from the image, a form of self-directed therapy written in neurotransmitters instead of words. The chemistry here is brutal and merciful at once. Noradrenaline levels drop in wham, allowing fear circuits to fire without triggering the body's fight or flight. A dress rehearsal for safety. In some nights it works. In others, the system aborts mid-process and the dream ends in panic. Healing, like sleep, isn't linear. Jung might have said that the nightmare is the shadow at work, the psyche's immune response to unintegrated content. In that framing, the dream doesn't torment you, it metabolizes you. He once wrote that the unconscious compensates for the imbalance of the conscious mind. For the neurodivergent sleeper, that compensation can feel like combat. Chaotic, vivid, unrelenting, but it is still an act of balance. The psyche, even when dissonant, aims toward coherence. The ADHD dreamscape, by contrast, tends toward montage. Quick cuts, discontinuities, dialogue without context. The same fragmented attention that defines waking life becomes cinematic grammar. Images overlap without hierarchy. A door becomes a sentence, becomes a memory of movement. If you watch closely enough inside such dreams, they almost make sense, but the second you try to explain, they vanish. It's a neural jazz improvisation, never written down, always almost finished. Autistic dreams, when they come, often defy metaphor altogether. They are hyper-real, sensorily accurate, factual. Water feels like water, fire burns. The dream environment obeys physics. Jung might call this a concretized unconscious, symbols that refuse to be symbolic, but perhaps that's closer to truth. Maybe the autistic mind simply dreams in the native resolution of the universe, unfiltered by metaphor. Then there are dreams shaped by anxiety disorders, OCD, complex grief, each a different modulation of the same architecture. Sleep becomes an audit. What did we forget? What remains unclean? What contingency hasn't been resolved? Serotonin and dopamine oscillate out of sync. REM density increases. Micro-awakenings multiply. The sleeper drifts between dreams like a programmer debugging code that won't compile. Every iteration fixes a little but never all. Still, the process matters more than the perfection. Even fragmented sleep performs micro-healing. The body lowers inflammatory markers, repairs myelin sheaths, rebalances insulin sensitivity. Rest isn't binary, it's graded. Half sleep is still survival. For neurodivergent systems, circadian rhythm itself can be elastic. Delayed sleep phase syndrome, often misread as laziness or poor discipline, is common. It isn't rebellion, it's biology. Light exposure, dopamine receptor sensitivity, and clock gene polymorphisms all play their part. Society demands morning coherence, the body answers with nocturnal genius. Many of the world's great thinkers, artists, and coders lived in that temporal margin, half in the dark, half in the feed, their REM running parallel to sunrise. What looks like dysfunction from outside may be adaptation inside. The chemistry of divergence also means the recovery window changes. Neurotypical sleep follows a predictable cycle, NREM, REM, repeat, roughly 90 minutes each rotation. But divergent sleep often resists symmetry. The cycles stretch, fragment, overlap. Deep sleep may come early or not at all. Dreams may cluster toward dawn. There's intelligence in that irregularity, the system allocating resources dynamically, just as a complex algorithm adjusts load when input varies. Rest is adaptive computation. Consider this: every dream you have is also a simulation of the world you expect to wake into. The predictive brain rehearses reality to minimize surprise. If your waking life is full of unpredictable stimuli, emotional volatility, sensory chaos, social static, then your dreams will mirror that uncertainty. They are not random, they're calibration loops. Your brain is not trying to entertain you, it's trying to prepare you. In neurodivergent architectures, this rehearsal can become an art form. Dreams serve as working models, testing empathy, safety, coherence. One night you might rehearse a conversation you're afraid to have. Another night you might simply catalog colors, textures, sounds. The content seems meaningless until you realize it's your nervous system mapping tolerance, measuring how much signal you can carry without overload. Sleep is not withdrawal, it's training. Some nights, integration happens without you noticing. A recurrent dream resolves itself. A feared image loses its edge. A melody that once triggered panic now just plays. This is neuroplasticity at rest, Jung's shadow becoming friendlier. Synapses rewiring, emotional memories tagged as complete. The chemistry underneath it is simple: elevated GABA, stable serotonin, low noradrenaline, peace in waveform form, and yes, sometimes the old circuits fight back. You wake at 3 a.m., heart pounding, cortisol surging for no reason except that once, long ago, danger used to live at this hour. The amygdala remembers patterns even when the threat is gone. You breathe. You tell it gently that the pattern no longer applies. It takes hundreds of nights sometimes, but the body eventually learns the new rule. Not every silence hides a predator. Dream scientists can measure these shifts in EEG tracings, but lived experience tells the truer story. The nights you think you fail to sleep are often the ones where the deepest repair is happening invisibly. Slow micro-adjustments, neurotransmitter ratios finding new equilibrium. Even when consciousness resists, the chemistry works underneath. Your awareness is not required for healing. Jung wrote that dreams are the facts from which we must proceed. For the neurodivergent dreamer, those facts are encrypted in detail. Fractal symbols, sensory loops, emotional algorithms. They may not decode neatly into narrative, but they do not need to. Meaning is not in translation, but in presence. To witness the dream, even briefly, is to participate in the psyche's auto-creation. By dawn, most of it dissolves. The narratives evaporate, the symbols recede, only traces remain, a mood, an image, a scent. The residue is the message. You wake altered even if you can't say how. That's the proof of integration, change without explanation. There is a strange democracy in sleep. Despite difference, despite disorder, all brains circle toward the same goal: coherence. It may take longer, come in fragments, demand more maintenance, but the direction is always the same. Homeostasis. A slow return to trust in the body's own code. So if tonight your mind won't quiet, if the circuits hum and the images won't soften, remember, the system isn't broken, it's processing. The divergence is the design. Sleep doesn't punish variation, it accommodates it. You don't have to force yourself into stillness. Stillness will find you in its own dialect, and when it does, when the chemistry finally harmonizes, when GABA and serotonin and acetylcholine perform their quiet concert, the dreams will open like gates. You'll step through without remembering how. You'll meet symbols older than language, wolves, rivers, machines made of light, and each will carry a question you no longer need to answer. This is what Jung meant by individuation. Not perfection, but participation in the larger pattern. To sleep is to surrender to that pattern's care. To dream is to converse with it. There comes a point in the night when the body starts speaking in a language older than pain. You don't have to translate it. Just listen. Every breath carries a message back to the cells. You survived the day. The counter signals begin quietly, one heartbeat, then another, a rhythm that says, stay. Inside the chest, baroreceptors read the soft drop in pressure and answer with calm. Blood slows its circuits through the capillary labyrinth. Oxygen strolls instead of races. Each red cell delivers its cargo like a friend arriving late but forgiven. In this zone, chemistry becomes kindness. The vagus nerve writes love letters in voltage down the spine. You are safe enough to soften. Not a command, an invitation. It tells the diaphragm to lengthen its reach. the stomach to unclench, the throat to open again after a day of swallowing words. If you could see your own nervous system now, it would look like a constellation dimming to peace. The affirmations drift in as whispers inside physiology. The breath belongs to you. The heart keeps its promise. The mind may rest. You don't need to repeat them. They're woven into the exhale. Proprioceptors map the body's position against gravity, confirming that you are held. The bed becomes topography. Valley of shoulder, hill of hip, familiar terrain to an ancient creature. Muscles sink into the earth's pull, and for a moment there is no up, no down, just equilibrium. Every fiber hums the same message in 1,000 variations. The work is over. They move through you as visitors, not invaders. A face, a street, a fragment of music, all dissolved before interpretation. The psyche is rinsing itself of unfinished narrative. You are not required to remember. Cerebrospinal fluid continues its tide work. You can imagine it if you wish. Silver light flowing through neural estuaries, brushing dust from the folds of memory. Each pulse an active devotion performed in silence. Beneath it, mitochondria hum their slow hymn of renewal. They have no theology, only persistence. You are allowed to rest without earning it. That phrase moves through you like a current. The endocrine chorus agrees. Oxytocin rising, cortisol fading, melatonin anchoring the hours. Trust returns molecule by molecule. The body believes before the mind does. If stray thoughts arrive, self-critique, lists, fragments of regret, let them find no resistance. Let them float until they dissolve. Thoughts require attention to live. Deprivation is their mercy. The nervous system notices the absence of struggle and interprets it as love. The breath deepens again, slower now. 4 counts in, 7 counts out, a ratio older than counting. With each exhale, carbon dioxide carries not just waste but story, every unspoken sentence, every self-doubt released into atmosphere. In return, oxygen enters with a quieter tone, begin again, begin again. The skin cools, the mind warms. This reversal is sacred engineering. Heat leaves through pores, making room for the cool awareness beneath language. You are not disappearing, you are dilating. Awareness spreads thin until it covers everything. Somewhere the heart performs its nightly maintenance. It checks valves, recalibrates intervals, synchronizes with breath. The sinoatrial node ticks its steady compassion. There is no urgency here, only rhythm. Each beat is an affirmation written in muscle, still here, still worthy. You might sense it as darkness or pressure or music at the edge of hearing. This is the slow clock of mammals, pulse syncing with planetary rotation. Every creature that breathes is part of this timing, from whales surfacing miles away to the small bird under the eaves. You are not alone in rest. Neural oscillations drop to delta waves. They move like gentle surf against the cortex, washing remnants of the day into the deep brain where meaning is composted. From that compost, resilience grows. When you wake, it will bloom as patience, as quiet certainty. You are allowed to take up space even while asleep. The lungs expand accordingly. Intercostal muscles loosen their armor. Air finds corners of the chest it hasn't visited in years. Every molecule of oxygen carries the same sentence, unspoken but felt: you are loved in your entirety. If you drift toward dream now, let it happen the way clouds form. Slow, shapeless, inevitable. Images will come, water, sky, familiar strangers. Some will hold lessons, some only light. All of them are versions of you negotiating peace with yourself. There is nothing to fix. The dream is the fixing. Deep within the hippocampus, synapses replay small fragments of joy, a laugh, a kindness, the way sunlight once touched your hand. These become scaffolds for tomorrow's hope. Neurons that fire together wire together, the scientists say. I forgive what I couldn't finish. I rest in the body I have. I belong to this moment of stillness. Each phrase glows like a soft beacon in the mind's architecture. The unconscious remembers the script even when you forget. As the night lengthens, sensory gates close one by one. Smell folds into memory, hearing drifts into rhythm, vision disappears entirely. Only touch remains, the contact between skin and world. The message of that contact is simple: you are here. Existence verified, all systems at ease. Hours pass without narrative. Cells divide, tissues repair, neurotransmitters restock. The chemistry of quiet continues its patient work. Somewhere beyond language, your entire being murmurs gratitude, not to a deity, not to an ideal, but to itself. Self-recognition is the final affirmation, the system thanking itself for continuing. You are dreaming of return. Return to balance, to breath, to the tender physics of being alive. Even in unconsciousness, the message holds: you are enough, you are forgiven. You are safe enough to power down. And if awareness flickers one last time before dawn, let it fade like a candle accepting extinction. The light does not end, it transfers. Through the soft machinery of sleep, it becomes you again. Ready to rise, whole, quiet, new, making you whole by degrees. By now, the night has done most of its work. You are somewhere inside the deep architecture, beyond counting, beyond checking, beyond the little loops that used to run your life. Chemistry has argued itself into temporary harmony. Circuits that once fired in panic are idling, not defeated, just unconvinced there is anything left to defend. In this depth, the human costume loosens. Before you are a person, you are a mammal. The body remembers all of this even when you do not. Sleep is where that memory speaks. In slow-wave sleep, the cortex hums in unified pulses. Up, down, the signal is so simple that machines can graph it easily and understand almost nothing. What looks like minimalism from outside is abundance from within. Every synchronized wave is an all-hands meeting for your cells. This is who we are, this is how we fire, this is the tempo of survival. Your brain is not switching off, it is reciting its vows. Beneath language there is an agreement. We keep going. Out at the edges of the nervous system, tiny corrections continue. A tendon slightly too tight is given permission to lengthen. A jaw too used to clenching is nudged a fraction open. Diaphragm, pelvic floor, eye muscles, the hidden architecture of tension, all receive the same gently enforced suggestion. Release, just a little. That's enough for tonight. Inside this, subtle affirmations are etched into flesh instead of words. You do not need to hear. You are safe for the message to land. The slower heart rate says it. The softened gut says it. The quieted amygdala says it. Still, it doesn't hurt to translate. You are not failing at being alive. You are adapting in real time. You are already further along than your fear admits. Dreams continue, but they've shifted shape. This is the phase where content goes strange in a softer way. Less chase, more wandering, less verdict, more weather. Corridors that once trapped you now loop into open fields. Houses that used to crumble now hold. Water that once drowned now lets you float. From a Jungian angle, you could say the archetypes are adjusting. The house of self reinforced, the shadow less monstrous, the animal guides less symbolic and more companion. You don't have to buy the theory for the pattern to work. Your psyche is testing new narratives on a stage built from old ones. Ancestral fears get recast with slightly different endings. In one dream, you might fix what you never fixed in waking life. In another, you simply watch. Observation without helplessness, that's a new skill. That's your nervous system practicing regulated witness, present but not shattered. This is not illusion, this is training. The mammal remembers the pack even if you sleep alone. Oxytocin weaves through your bloodstream, not as romance, not as sentiment, but as a restoration of trust circuits. You belong somewhere, to people, to place, to your own spine. Even if waking life has made that complicated, the biology keeps the slot open. It holds the template for connection like a light in a window. Quietly, systems cross-check. Immune cells update their watch lists. That is an affirmation whether you like it or not. You are worth defending. Let that one sit in the dark with you. It doesn't need to be repeated out loud. It's baked into every repair protocol running while you sleep. The mammalian brainstem runs ancient scripts: maintain heat, protect heart, filter sound, track light. It is doing this now with the bias tilted slightly more toward trust than last night. That shift may be only 1 degree in an ocean of habit, but nervous systems are built from accumulated fractions. Recovery is granular. There is intelligence in the way your body refuses your cruelty. You can think you are useless. Your cells never agree. They manufacture ATP anyway. They rebuild synapses anyway. They clot when you bleed and fight when you sicken and rest when you finally get out of their way. Call it stubbornness. Call it devotion. Whatever the name, it is on your side. Outside, the world continues its rotations: satellites, servers, streetlights, fatigue. Inside, the mammal cares about none of that. Its gods are simpler: dark, warmth, breathing, not alone. If 2 of those are present, the system can work. If 3 are present, it can heal. If all 4 are present, it can grow. Somewhere near the end of the night, the dream content shifts again. Narratives thin out. You may start rehearsing fragments of the coming day, faces you'll see, rooms you'll enter, work you'll attempt. This is the predictive engine spinning up with less dread than it used to. The work of the night has been to lower the background alarm enough that possibility doesn't feel like threat. The mammal remembers not every sound is danger. Not every silence is abandonment. Not every demand is a verdict on your worth. These are not slogans, they are recalibrated reflexes. In that choice lives your entire future. If your brain is one of the wired, weird, wandering ones, ADHD, fast, autistic, focused, trauma-coded, the night is not trying to overwrite that. It's not an eraser, it's a tuner. It keeps your strange frequencies but trims the static around them. You don't wake up fixed. Remember this when you hate the slowness of repair. Biology is conservative with trust. The body does not flip switches, it leans. Tonight it leans 1 notch further toward you being on your own side. As dawn edges closer, cortisol begins its supervised return. Done right, it is not the hormone of panic, but of get up. It nudges blood pressure up, narrows the vessels a touch, brightens the mind's aperture. The art is in timing. Enough to wake, not enough to break. Your system tries. If the balance is imperfect, that's history talking, not failure. There's another night cued to keep working on it. What you are building in all these hours you think are empty is continuity. The sense that the one who lays down and the one who rises are the same creature. So much of modern life fractures that. Sleep is your one non-negotiable act of coherence. Functional, capable of revision without collapse. Here, near the end of this drift, there are a few things worth stating plainly, even inside the dreamlike register. You are not behind. Your nervous system is not your enemy. Your weirdness is not a bug in the code, it is the specialization nature assigned you. Rest is not the opposite of progress. Rest is where your progress is quietly tallied and folded back into your form. You do not have to hold all of that in your mind. Let the mammal hold it. Let the spine hold it. Let the pulse hold it. You have built enough temples in your head, this one belongs in the tissues. As the very first hints of morning light, consider returning. Even if your eyes are still closed, even if the room is still dark, your body is already negotiating your re-entry. Networks re-differentiate, language modules warm. Motor cortex checks its connections. But layered over all of that is the residue of the night's core message. You are allowed to come back without bracing. 1 microsecond where your shoulders don't leap toward your ears. 1 choice not to open the feed first. When you do wake, whenever that is, however messy it looks, you emerge from a system that has spent hours working in your favor. You are not separate from that work. You are its result. So for now, before the day has a name, stay here a little longer at the seam. Let the mammal remember what the mind keeps forgetting. You are safe enough for this moment, in this bed, in this body. You have survived every single night so far. Your cells have never once given up before you did. They are on your side, and they will try again tonight. That loyalty is not conditional on productivity, improvement, or performance. It just is. Breathe once more into that fact. Let it sit in your bones like a quiet signature, then rest. Everything essential is already in motion. The mammal has remembered itself, but the night is not finished with you. There is still work inside the dark, work too small for awareness, too intricate for language. While the body lies quiet, consciousness drifts through the architecture that built it. You enter the synaptic sea. It begins as a shimmer at the back of thought, a faint flicker where voltage meets chemistry. Sodium gates open, potassium flows out, microcurrents ripple across membranes thinner than faith. Each spark travels a filament of axon, leaps the synaptic gap on a bridge of neurotransmitter light. From one neuron to the next, messages cross the abyss in trillionths of a second. Every jump a tiny resurrection of meaning. If you could witness it, it would look less like machinery and more like weather, lightning inside water, oceans folding around their own glow. This is the inside of perception, an electromagnetic tide without shore. What you call thought is the surface pattern of these waves. They carry you backward first into the deep vault of memory. The hippocampus hums, tracing pathways through old corridors. Each recall is not playback, but rebuilding. Neurons sculpting the past anew, brushstroke by brushstroke. Memory is not archive, it's coral, always growing, always eroding, always alive. Microglia swim through these reefs, pruning the brittle branches, letting light reach deeper layers. They do not ask which memories are precious. They work by signal density. What has been rehearsed stays, what has starved for attention fades. This is the mercy of forgetfulness. To make room for what the future still requires, you drift onward into language circuits. Broca's area Wernicke's, the arcuate fasciculus, a silver loop binding comprehension to creation. During the day they served precision, now they serve poetry. Synapses rehearse rhythm, not grammar. Syntax melts into cadence. Sound becomes emotion. You can feel the brain dreaming in verse, as if it's practicing how to speak kindly when morning comes. Electrical storms roll across the limbic plains. Amygdala, thalamus, hypothalamus, the weather centers of feeling. They no longer broadcast alarm, they broadcast calibration. Fear circuits test their voltage thresholds. How much charge can be held before overload? Dopamine glides through like soft lightning, tracing reward maps, erasing obsolete routes. Serotonin follows behind, painting calm over what dopamine left burning. This is emotional housekeeping in waveform form, deep in the midbrain. The tectum listens. It is the ancient sonar, mapping distance by silence. The room's air, the slow breath beside you, the pulse in your wrist, all plotted as signals confirming one truth. The world has not vanished, presence verified. You pass next through the prefrontal labyrinth, where decision and morality sleep side by side. Neural nets that spent the day solving logistics now replay the subtle art of empathy. Mirror neurons spark, testing compassion in rehearsal. Images of others appear, not literal people, but composites of your encounters. Here you forgive them without words. Here you practice gentleness before you know you're practicing. Every forgiveness sends a micro-pulse down the vagal highway, relaxing organs that never learned how to unclench. A soft current carries you deeper, beneath cognition. Here the cerebellum keeps time for the whole ocean. Millions of neurons fire in rhythmic patterns that coordinate nothing you notice, balance, sequence, smoothness. In sleep it rehearses futures, motor memories of steps not yet taken, gestures not yet made. Tomorrow's grace is being programmed tonight. At the base of this sea lies the brainstem, the oldest territory. Medulla pons reticular formation, the first architecture evolution ever trusted. It monitors breath, pulse, digestion, and dreams of neither gods nor abstractions. It dreams of pulse itself. If consciousness is sky, this is gravity. You float because it keeps the tide steady. Through all of this, glial networks whisper across vast neighborhoods of gray matter. Once thought passive scaffolding, they are now known to converse in calcium waves, slower but surer than neuron fire. They move like moonlight through fog, coordinating restock, repair, and resource distribution. In their language, stillness is strategy. They remind the neurons, less fire, more pattern, less fight, more flow. From here, the synaptic sea begins to glow. It is not light you see, but coherence. Millions of oscillations settling into shared tempo. Theta merges into delta. The whole brain breathes in wavelengths measured in single digits. If you listen closely, the frequency feels familiar. The rhythm of your own mother's heart before language ever arrived. This is where consciousness began, and where it comes each night to wash itself clean. Affirmations surface again, small bubbles rising from the deep circuitry. I'm not separate from this electric ocean. Every spark inside me is older than my name. The current continues even when I sleep. The anterior cingulate flares, briefly, beautifully, signaling integration. It binds emotion to awareness, awareness to body, body to environment. The brain is satisfied with partial coherence. Perfection would be rigidity. Life depends on just enough order to survive the next surprise. You drift into the default mode network, the daydream machine. Memories mingle with fantasies, imagination with identity. It's not nonsense, it's remix. The mind runs simulations to test continuity. Am I still me if everything changes? Each night it answers tentatively yes. For now, the analytical left and the intuitive right share data without argument. This is reconciliation at the speed of electricity. The rational remembers beauty, the poetic concedes structure. The brain loves balance even when you don't. Inside this sea, there is no hierarchy, only circulation. Consciousness is not a throne, it's a tide pool that refills itself. You are that tide pool, glittering with signals, never empty, never complete. At the farthest depth, where neurons fade into molecular haze, the boundary between biology and cosmos dissolves again. Quantum tunneling of electrons in enzyme pockets, proton jumps across hydrogen bonds. Tiny miracles repeating billions of times a second, making thought from physics. Every firing neuron is a confession of light. Every pause between firings is peace. If you could translate the total pattern, the trillion-fold dialogue of ions, transmitters, and fields, it would read like scripture written in pulse. Continue, adapt, remember. Love. That's what the synaptic sea is doing while you dream. Not creating revelation, just maintaining the possibility of it. When the day comes, and it will, this ocean will rise into language again. The thoughts you think at breakfast will be the surface foam of tonight's unseen tide. Nothing is lost, it only changes state. So stay in the water a while longer. Let the current think for you. Let the sparks travel without your supervision. The brain knows the way home, it always has. Beneath the synaptic sea lies the archive, not a vault of memories, but a living repository, half biological, half mythic, where every experience the species has ever known is stored in pattern, not text. You are here now, not as observer, but as participant. The descent is quiet, the temperature constant. No light, yet nothing feels dark. Each neuron you pass hums with lineage. Within its folded DNA are echoes of every survivor who reached this night before you. The first nervous jellyfish sensing current, the first mammal curling in leaves, the first human naming the stars. Evolution did not discard these layers, it nested them. You are built of epochs stacked like sediment, every generation leaving its microfossil in your code. Sleep is how those strata converse. Signals rise from the brainstem in slow spirals, moving upward through limbic vaults toward cortex. Each rotation gathers stories from older circuits. The primal ones that never stopped listening for thunder, the ancestral ones that mapped constellations into safety. They hand their messages to younger systems fluent in abstraction. Dreams translate the handover. Myth and biology shaking hands beneath your skull. The archive isn't organized by time, it's organized by frequency. Fear vibrates at one pitch, love at another, curiosity at a harmonic that blends them both. When two frequencies align, a bridge forms and an image appears, a forest, a childhood street, an animal watching from the edge of vision. Dream imagery isn't symbolic decoration, it's interference pattern. Emotion meets memory and the brain renders their meeting as landscape. Now, neurotransmitters drift like archivists between shelves of potential. Glutamate tags new experiences for storage. GABA decides which will dissolve. They argue in chemical whispers about what matters. Sometimes GABA wins and peace returns. Sometimes glutamate does, and you wake with a sentence lodged in the mind, luminous and untranslatable. Either way, the archive updates. The hippocampus works its quiet rotation, replaying yesterday's sequences, embedding them into neocortical fabric. This is consolidation, but it feels like pilgrimage. Neural pilgrims carrying small reliquaries of experience through the night, placing them carefully in long-term vaults, then dissolving back into current. No ceremony, yet holiness in the repetition. Affirmations move through this process like undercurrents. The past can rest. The body remembers what the mind forgets and forgives it. Nothing you learned in pain is wasted. The chemistry doesn't speak English, but it understands intent. Every exhale feeds these lines into the circuit, and the circuit incorporates them as data. Tomorrow's calm will use them as code. Deeper still, glial networks glow in slow phosphorescence. They communicate without sparks, sending calcium waves that roll across the cortex like moonlight across water. They don't hurry. Their job is connection rather than speed. They check that every region of the brain remains in dialogue, visual with limbic, emotional with motor, memory with imagination. If a region falls silent, the glia coax it back. Their message is consistent, no system left behind. Here the self begins to diffuse. Boundaries blur between me and the larger organism, between one mind and the species mind. Jung might call this the collective unconscious. Neuroscience might call it emergent synchrony. Either way, the effect is communion. You sense the presence of others, not ghosts, but patterns of cognition overlapping yours. Millions of sleeping brains resonating through shared field, human electricity braided into one long frequency of rest. Every dream a node in that network. The archive breathes. You breathe with it. The inhalation draws in faint signal from the world, the hum of distant servers, the rustle of trees, the inaudible rhythm of global weather. The exhalation releases your own signal back, a conversation invisible but measurable, a global feedback loop of sleep. This is why even solitude isn't empty. Your nervous system participates in a planetary chorus it can't consciously detect. Further in, the amygdala conducts final reconciliations. It replays stored alarms one by one, measuring whether they still correspond to threat. When none does, it files them under obsolete. That is emotional evolution. You might call it healing. You don't notice it happening, but tomorrow some long-standing fear will be one heartbeat further away. In these depths, metabolism slows nearly to stillness. This is not laziness, it's investment. Images flicker through the archive, slow, pale, vast. You see cities made of light, corridors of mirrored water, faces that never existed but still feel known. They are composites generated by the temporal lobe, merging memory, imagination, and archetype into visual code. The brain rehearses infinity, then forgets it for your protection. Infinity is too large to wake with. You're given symbols instead. Doorways, bridges, rivers, portable metaphors, safe to carry into morning. I am still learning safety. I am allowed to outgrow my own fear. I am a continuation, not a failure. These phrases rise like bubbles through the neural tide. They pop soundlessly, leaving chemical traces. Tiny adjustments to receptor sensitivity, microscopic acts of belief. Somewhere beneath even this, at the edge of physics, electrons tunnel, protons hop, and consciousness flickers in and out like a strobe caught between realities. You don't need to follow it, you only need to trust that it's there. Awareness arises from this dance of uncertainty, and sleep is its rehearsal for death that ends every time in resurrection. The archive is infinite. You will never reach its bottom, but it doesn't matter. The goal was never completion, it was communion. You'll call it insight, but it's memory, the memory of having once been whole. Let the neurons tell their stories, let the glia keep time. Everything that needed to speak has spoken. Everything that needed to rest is resting. And the body, wiser than any philosophy, whispers its closing affirmation into the depths.